Okay. So Fong Jek, do you want to just start with, do you want to just give a bit of a background and introduction to yourself?
Yeah, so I run a fund management company in Singapore called Jubilee Capital, and we have two venture funds. One is called the Jubilee Technology Fund, which is an equity fund, and we invest in early stage companies, startups in the region, China and Southeast Asia in general. We do investments in pre-A to early B round, check size between 500,000 to 3 million. And we have invested in e-commerce, fintech, and some of the AI-related kind of companies. And I have a second fund, which is called the Blockchain Fund, Jubilee Blockchain Fund. We've invested in early stage public protocol and projects, like Telegram, and Smart Valon in Switzerland. So these are early stage blockchain companies that we invested in 3 years back. And it's a 3-year fund, and we have actually closed the fund and returned the money back to our investors with very good return. And so to say that right now is still a very good time to get into the crypto space for investments. We're in the process of preparing for the next fund. And meanwhile, I've been doing some new investments into some emerging high potential projects like in the NFT space, smart yielding, smart yield farming, even GameFi, and some of these crypto projects that's up and coming. Yeah.
Well, on that note, given we're talking, so yesterday, just so you know, we had on a live stream, we had Henrik, who's the CIO for Apollo Capital, who is probably one of the largest sort of crypto funds sort of in Australia. So now he obviously is just purely investing into digital assets. Now you mentioned about blockchain from a platform side. You're obviously investing from an equities component as well. So for you, like when you're looking at this, when you're looking at blockchain as I suppose, as a platform technology, and when you're looking at investing into opportunities, what are the investment trends that you are seeing that's taking place right now in Southeast Asia, which can often sort of lead the way in this area? What are you seeing?
Yeah, so just a bit of the trending in the past, right? When the wave started, beyond Bitcoin and Ether, so once a layer one protocol came into the market, they were looking for the killer app, right? And in 2017 and 2018, we saw a lot of ICOs that were they were developing various kinds of applications. And we saw in 2019 and 2000 when we have the DeFi, which is one of the major killer apps, I would say, that were able to harness a lot of investment interest into all this yield farming, staking, projects generating very attractive yields. And then we have a new trend where we're looking at the GameFi right now, right? We have people talking about the key terms like metaverse, NFTs, or NFT as a service. A lot of these new projects are being launched not only on a centralized exchange but also on the decentralized exchange, right? So you have a twin play where projects are launched concurrently on decentralized exchange via the IDOs on various launch pads, which is on various blockchain protocol, and sometimes they would have a very short or even concurrent launch on the IEOs, right, on centralized exchange. Give example like Star Atlas, right? Star Atlas, I think those of you who are who monitor the sector very closely, you will see that Star Atlas was launched early this month, and they had like almost like 160x times in terms of uplift. This is a Star Wars like kind of a game. It's a metaverse, multiplayer games, and they launched the governance token and the player token at the same time on FTX exchange as well as on the Radium exchange. So you have more sophisticated and a kind of a next level of sophisticated kind of a launch coming to the market. So game play to earn is a big trend, and I think Hendrik mentioned that even yesterday in the video. So we see a next wave of gaming project applications or gaming projects coming into the market right now. They are incorporating all the good features and the good attributes of prior blockchain projects, right? The staking, the DeFi, and or even e-commerce, right? They are incorporating all these different concepts into what they all plan to build the next generation of metaverse kind of games. So with
So, Fong Jek, do you just
yeah,
want to explain the metaverse just for anyone that's unaware?
No, I think it's still an evolving
Yeah.
so-called term. And you see the Facebook is like trying to say that they're trying to build um, the Facebook into a metaverse company. So we know that they own Oculus, and they are trying to develop all kinds of different applications where you can have very real experiences in the virtual world through the Oculus experience. And we have seen examples of the metaverse application through movies like Ready Player One, and now what is showing in the market, Free Guy. You see, examples on how the script writers have been imagining virtual world and the physical world are interacting across the different characters in the two worlds. So, and you see games like Star Atlas, all that, also trying to incorporating concepts right into this new virtual reality. So I think it's still evolving. It's still evolving how we are going to interact with the different virtual worlds, right? In this various application, be it games or e-commerce related in the blockchain world. I think that's something that that's still evolving very quickly. Yeah.
And when you're thinking about, and when you're looking at these companies, you're obviously seeing new business models that are really, you mentioned about yield farming as an example. Me and you the other day, we were talking about the ability to write options off the back of your holdings in sort of BTC and ETH. For me, as I mentioned this with Henry yesterday, I love the new business models that are being created, because effectively what it's doing is it's creating flexibility for founders, or it's creating new options for founders about how they can engage their own ecosystems or their own communities. So really what that means for you as a founder is you need to be thinking about, okay, how can I not only build a successful business, but also then how can I create engagement amongst my own community as well? And in watching even the way IEOs were done previously in the ICO boom, and even the way watching still how it's been done today, a lot of these sort of new companies, what they do really well is those building of communities, like straight off the bat. And for you sitting on the investor side, what are you looking for from adoption perspective of these companies? What are you looking for from the size of communities that are built, the growth of their communities, etc.?
Yeah, so I think that's a very good question, right? When we look at the new project, we want to see where are they going to get their user base. Do they have natural following or natural pool of users that they can tap into to drive traffic and adoption, right? So in an NFT world, we see a lot of artists management or the Hollywood's equivalent that are tapping into the fan base, right? Try to get them involved to buy NFT merchandise. For the longest while in the media entertainment, you have this long tail products and services that the media owners, the franchise owners will want to sell, right? From the movies to the merchandise, the books, comics, toys, and long tail thing, right? So
and also you have that issue. Sorry, just going to clarify also with the reason also like NFTs. Also, what people may not know with royalties when it comes to whether it be movie franchises or songs or anything like that. Often the artists, it can take them anywhere from 18 months to 2 years to get their money from the time, just given the actual inefficiency of the process. And that's sort of quite well documented. The other one that's also quite well documented is typically the production houses, when they typically have royalty percentages. And often what they'll do is they'll massively increase whatever I think it's called either Hollywood costing or something, and effectively minimizes the amount the artist ends up getting. So that ability to remove that sort of middleman and have the artist directly basically transacting on that. And then like what Henrik said yesterday, the ability to basically program into that sort of NFT a royalty for every transaction is something super exciting from a business model perspective.
Right. So overall, we're trying to cut down the number of layers, for the royalties owner to have a more direct access to the end consumer who are buying the merchandise or the NFT products, so that they have visibility as to who are the end consumer and higher share of the distribution of the sale. So give an example of one project that I personally invested in is a project called Chronicle, right? And strangely enough, it's a project that was founded in Perth, right? And they have built a NFT as a service platform, right? And it's being launched today. Actually, it's being launched on
wow.
DAO Maker. In the next few hours, you'll be launched. You can go and see all kinds of research that's available. And it is a project that was started like about maybe half a year ago, right? And then we're working with the studios, Universal Studio in Hollywood. We're looking at the different franchises available from the studios. I'll give an example. One of the founders is called Tim, and he used to be one of the designers of a digital creator for the Jurassic Park, right? So we're working with the studios to try to access the rich library of titles and rights that the studio may have, and we try to convert some of them into NFTs. And these NFTs can be sold and can be traded and can be put into the marketplace. And we're talking to all kinds of different artists, from the US side or even Asian artists who would like to tap into their fan base to buy some of the new NFT product that they can create. The movie stars who wants to create movie clips, small snippets of moves from their movies or from the songs that they create. So this is a new category of product and services that is coming to the market. And Chronicle is launching with a big bang. They have more than 10,000 following on the social media and the Telegram channel. So right now, well, those of you who are interested, take a look on this website. Yeah, and DAO Maker, for example, is also a very good launch pad, right? A lot of great projects are being launched there. So this is another way that people can participate.
So from a business model perspective, what I find really interesting, and I even found this interesting in the ICO boom, right? What I was really curious about in the ICO boom was sometimes companies were raising so much money that effectively, normally when a company goes to raise money, they typically raise enough for a 1 to 2 year runway. Some of these companies were raising enough for a 5 to 10 year runway. And obviously the price of Ethereum went down. Some would have freaked out. Some projects would have collapsed. Absolutely, there would have been other projects that would have survived that sort of crypto winter, and they've got now years worth of runway, which they can leverage off going forward. The other part, which if you think about this, the internet provides that layer for information, right? And then the second one, this also talked about this with Henrik, this ability for distribution for networks, whether it be via their own social media, whether it be Instagram, whether it be Facebook, whether it be Twitter, or whether it be their own direct communication via something like Telegram, or even their own email base. For any company that has that ability to attract a following, or for any artist, or for any whatever, they've now got this new revenue mechanism basically built into their potential opportunity. So that also starts to change the way people think.
Just want to add one more point, right, on the other question on the traffic flow, where the user base is going to come from. Right now, I'm looking at another project. It's a gaming project where they want to tie up with a telecom operator, right? Where telecom operator would have a natural subscriber base who are very familiar with digital products, and they have credits and rewards points that are sitting in their account as a subscriber of a telecom operator. I won't put names to it, but it's an active project that they're trying to integrate the gaming world with the telecom world. And then you can see a natural kind of collaboration and synergies of cross-selling and cross-collaborating of different initiatives between the gaming community and the telecom subscriber community. You can use the tokens to exchange for data plan credits, which you can spend. You can consume it for your usual your telecom mobile phone consumption. You can also use the token to exchange for credits, which you can buy and spend it with the merchants that are collaborating with a telecom operator. And so all these rewards points. In a way, there are some of these similar use case as during the first wave of ICO, we see a lot of this utility token tying up with merchants to convert the token to something we can spend and consume. So I think we are seeing a lot more of this collaboration with the more mature blockchain, public layer one blockchain coming up with faster TPS capability. We are going to see that imagination coming into reality very soon.
And even like you mentioned, the telco companies, right? There's other initiatives that they could have. Is, for example, is that they could provide tokens for payment on time, or they could create new models to incentivize the right activities in which they want. I know from my perspective, I'm thinking about, how could I potentially utilize that to encourage good behavior, or to encourage certain activities which leads to an outcome that I want. And you see that in gaming, where in the gaming, they'll obviously use NFTs as part of the gamification process in sort of moving through the stages. What's also beautiful about gaming is sometimes a lot of the business models which really work with gaming then end up translating over to traditional businesses, which also then, so really when you're seeing that unfold in the gaming world and also just on different NFT platforms, it starts to make you think, what could I start thinking about now? Because you're dealing with, from a generational aspect, you're dealing with millennials who are very well much across crypto, and also you're dealing with Gen Z who are also very much across crypto. And if you've got a long-term plan for your business that goes beyond 5 to 10 years, at some point the millennials are coming to their peak earning capacity. There's a transference of wealth from baby boomers through to millennials and to Gen Z. This has to be part of your model that you're thinking about.
That's right. The other thing that investors can think about, and I personally think that is important, is impact investing, right? So if you look into impact investing, how do we contribute towards the closing the gap between the haves and haves not, right? Or the digital divide between the digital natives and the digital migrant. So if we can, through some of these projects, bring about some social good, right, some social contribution to the different countries and communities, I think this will be a very good so-called rationale for investors to come together and put resources together to make some changes for the good for the public. So GameFi projects are doing this quite well, right? So you're creating income for the players who may not have a job otherwise. So that's a very good initiative. We're also looking at how to empower some of these charitable organizations who have a lot of caregivers that are serving the community, but they themselves, the caregivers, may not have a lot of resources on hand. So if there are certain projects that we can invest into, where we can mobilize, even like the caregivers to be a beneficiary of sort, right? As part of this the community, we can actually bring on top. We can close up the gap between those in that segment of the society with the investor and the entrepreneur business community. So I think the impact investing side, in line with all these green movement, the SDG movements, ESG movements, all these have to come together somehow, and there are many potential for collaboration in that space.
I like it. And then adding to that, the natural, or what you're seeing from the actual adoption rate of sort of crypto, when you compare that to the internet. I think I was listening to something, and they mentioned that the adoption rate of the internet is the adoption rate of the internet was about 67% per year. The adoption of crypto is sitting at around about 130% of a year. If I've got those numbers wrong, apologies, but you get the idea. Like, the rate it's growing is incredibly fast. We mentioned yesterday there's only still like a couple 100 million wallets. If you're talking about getting that to 1 billion, also what's cool about that is there's been obviously a lot of young people that have invested into crypto very, very early and have actually made a substantial amount of money, where that sort of aspect, that caregiving, or the investment back into the ecosystem, or the ESG aspect, is something which is super important. So the rise of companies in that area creates such an opportunity. And the second layer to this, it's global. Like, it doesn't matter if it's whether the company's based in Africa, Singapore, it literally does not matter when you're dealing with crypto.
That's right. That's correct.
And I've got a question for you. So when you're obviously, and this is one of the hardest parts, right? So I was asking about adoption rates that you're seeing. The next part I'm curious about is when you're investing into a blockchain related project, or even just a company in general, how do you assess their product roadmap? Because at some stage when you're going through the conversations, you're looking at what they've already built. These are highly technologically driven companies. How are you assessing the team behind it and also the technology roadmap for what they're building?
Yeah, so this is a very good question, right? So, well, we have to sometimes work with people who knows the technical aspects of things, right? So we don't have all the knowledge for every aspects of it. No, I can be looking at the commercial aspect of a project to look at who are the backers, the sponsors, and whether these sponsors would have the technical know-how and the community to support a project's adoption. We look at the financial, the team's background, right, and we look at who are the what is roadmap towards not just developing the product, but also the roadmap towards monetizing, right, or commercializing the product and monetizing the product. And these are various, I think, very diverse kind of a different point of view where we assess a project. And there's a certain methodology to it, but to some extent, there's also a lot of trust in terms of reliance on the team. And for me, right now, I have to work with different parties for different projects to see how we can close the gaps in terms of assessments of a particular project.
And when you're assessing, like I said, so going back to that part as far as looking at it, so you're looking at what they've built so far, you're looking at the team. Are you seeing the effectiveness of some of, if it's very early, right? I'm assuming it's super early, and I'm assuming they would have done some sort of either trials or like, how are you looking at the effectiveness of some of the trials that they may have done, or maybe some of their early partners, or maybe some of the test cases that they're putting forward?
See, a lot of times for the actual project, they may not have developed anything yet, right? They may have MVP, they may not have it. It could be as early as just one white paper, or sometimes the white paper may not be even complete, right? So then, in which case, then it's a bit of a judgment call as well. No, especially if you're looking at a very early stage, you look at the plan, look at the team, and look at their past track record. Have they built something before? Have they invested in something in a similar segment before? Have they been successful, right? And can these people be trusted, right? So we look at I would personally look a lot more into the team's so-called the DNA, the value system, and how they do things, right? And if the team is credible, and then we have worked together before, we have co-invested with them team before, then that's where I would derive some of the so-called the comfort to proceed into a project.
Yeah. And when you're receiving sort of introductions to opportunities, how are you so for example, I'm sure on a monthly basis, you'll get introduced to anywhere between 10 to 30 new projects, right? How does your mind filter those different projects? Because obviously we only have a certain amount of cognitive capacity and we only have a certain amount of time. How is your brain filtering those sort of opportunities that come across your desk or your inbox?
Now, so for me, it's the person, the people who is driving those projects is the most important, right? Given the limitation of time, I can't be able to drill in deep enough to understand every new emerging project or technology, right? There's no way I can do it. And these days we have to act very fast, right? So the team, the sponsor, the founding team is the most important. Then you try to have various conversations with the team to talk to them, understand the psyche, understand the motivation, and also more importantly, beyond what they're trying to do, you try to look what is the main driving force behind their intention to try to create a business. Because sometimes that determines why are they doing what they're doing, right? And how passionate they are, and how long are they going to be staying in the game to see to the fruition of the vision. And then beyond that will be the usual mechanics, the drill of evaluating the project and all that. But I think in the crypto world, more importantly, is also the ecosystem, the other players that is coming alongside with the project to make sure it's going to be successful, right? It could be other strategic investors, whether it's at the equity level or is it at the token level, or even at the community building level, right? So building community is extremely important, right? So where are they going to have the users to market to them, to get them onboarded, to support their use of the product that this product is going to create. So all that, ideally, we would like to see a roadmap from the team on how they can incorporate all the different plans to it. And what problem are they solving, right? So a lot of things, the basic fundamental questions of a startup is to is still applicable, right? What problem are you trying to solve? What is the solution that you're proposing? Is it in line with the mega trend, right? And where are the adopters of this proposed solution? Is it going to scale? Where is the tokenomics or the economics, the business model, and how are you going to exit, right, for the investors or for the team or the token holders, right? So I think a lot of these basic fundamental questions are still applicable. It might take a different angle, a different emphasis in the crypto world. But for me, having kind of a transited from the old world into the crypto side, I do see a lot of parallel and similar applicable principles in these projects. And I would just add, as I mentioned earlier, the impact investing kind of a mindset, right? So is it doing any good to the society? I think that's increasingly a very important sort of factor that investors will look at. They do not want just to invest to any project that just earn profits, but they want to be contributing towards some progress in the society, right? To create some good for the country, for the community.
Agreed.
So I think that's important.
And so you mentioned on one part, right? You mentioned the component about what problem are they actually solving? Now, the question I have, obviously, you've been investing in this space for some time. Singapore is obviously a phenomenal area for when it comes to crypto, and you've been through a couple boom busts, or let's go at crypto bull runs, and you've been through the crypto winters. What's your observation of the difference between the companies which have survived and thrived post sort of crypto winter versus the projects which, let's say, had lots of hype and sort of disappeared or have not been able to fulfill on any of their sort of promise that they had? What's been the big difference that you've seen in that time?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, right? And if I were to just maybe distill it down to maybe a couple of observations, right? I think one is still the mindset of the founders, the management team. During the winter period, would the team be able to adapt with the lack of resources, either pivot or they change some of the models, cut down the cost to run in a more sustainable way, while keeping to their calling, keeping it to their vision, trying to kind of stay low, survive, and wait for the next opportunity to rise up again. The resilience part of it, right? So that's extremely important. I mean, you have gone through that whole cycle yourself many times. I think this is something that is a very important factor to have. Not everyone has it. Even those who appear to be quite resilient, sometimes they may break, right? So it's very important to have maybe shareholders or partners to come alongside to help them pull through the difficult period. You need people who believe in the team to be able to help motivate them.
I was going to say, it's amazing how many investors I've met that actually mention part of their job role is emotional counseling, and that surprises me.
You're right. So a lot of coaching is required, a lot of mentorship is required, because when we run a startup or run a business, we have a lot of blind spots, and we will go through a lot of emotional ups and downs, right? Our minds are constantly thinking about multiple things, trying to solve multiple problems, and sometimes you will lose a perspective on how to do certain things correctly, right? It's not that you're doing a job at your boss tell you to do one thing, you can have the luxury of time to focus on just one thing. But if you're running a startup, you're thinking of multiple things at the same time, you can't sleep at night. So there's a lot of this emotional kind of roller coaster experience that you're going through.
So the best way I describe it, the best way I can metaphorically describe it is that as a founder, you're playing at least 7 games of chess at the one time. At the same time is you've got 50 to 100 people vying, screaming for your attention in different ways, whether it be team members, suppliers, customers, investors, whatever it may be. And then at the same time, you're putting out fires. You got fires that you need to put out at the same time. So if you put all those 3 things together, that's pretty much sums up the life of a founder, especially going through growth.
Precisely. And then you must be able to keep up that spirit yourself, right? To be very optimistic.
And be thinking strategic at the same time.
Yeah, you need to think strategic, you need to think operational, you need
Yeah.
to think, even at the lowest fundamental level, be able to do things
Yeah.
yourself, roll up a sleeve and do it yourself.
And funny enough, you spend more, you find as you grow, you're spending more of your time, spending it with the team, making sure that they're on track for their own things that they're ambitious about, right? Because you just realize how much the value of team comes part of it. Another question I have for you is that you mentioned the word mega trends. Now, I love this because I said that's pretty much the job as an investor, or even for me as a founder especially in the area that I'm in, is I've got to think about what are the mega trends going forward, because it's what are the areas you're going to focus on. We've talked about blockchain, we've talked about ESG. What are some of the other mega trends that you sort of have in your own investment thesis that are, represent this
So I
next
think
5 to
for
10
me,
years?
I think for me, the two trends that I'm really trying to embrace, first is the digital wealth, the digital wealth management aspect of things, right? So for the longest while, a lot of private wealth were managed by the private banks, and crypto as one of the asset class uh, has has not. I mean, still to today, is not part of the private banking world's so-called portfolio. But increasingly, we have a lot more investors who are willing to put aside some small allocation to
Yeah.
to participate in it. Now, the challenge and the opportunity is how do we embrace this demand, right? And onboard, find a way to onboard these new investors. And it could be the younger investors, it could be the traditional investors from the old world who are willing to get some exposure. So I think the digital wealth aspect is one mega trend, right? And we
And
see the banks coming.
to start that, like exactly on that digital wealth part, to start that, I've seen something really cool with OSL out of Hong Kong, licensing to DBS, their exchanges, and then also to Standard Charter in the UK as well. So as a railway to potentially being something for that digital wealth sort of management, or bringing in sort of clients of banking corporations, you can see how, even though they're sort of in that sort of early stages, you can see what that can look like sort of rolling out. So very
Precisely.
interesting.
Yeah, so one example I can show you, I invested 3 years ago into a digital wealth platform called Smart Law, right? They are licensed in Switzerland. I think I mentioned to you before, they're licensed in Switzerland, and they have the digital custodian license from Liechtenstein, and they have the digital exchange license from Liechtenstein as well. And they are working with all the different investors on the platform. And they have various products that are available for them to purchase or to trade in. Other than the traditional Bitcoin and Ether and the major currency and the DeFi coins, they have the NFTs marketplace called for Law Prime, where you can go in and participate. They can offer tokenization service for assets, or even the traditional assets like properties, your art galleries, your hotels, and they can work with the different asset owners to find a way to tokenize the assets, right, and made it available through the user base of investors. So this is part of the effort of building a digital wealth platform and democratizing wealth management or investment opportunities, not only to just the high-end investors, but also to the mass affluent, and also to the normal the heartlanders, I would say, who would like to have some exposure. So I think digital wealth is one mega trend, and I'll just add on the second trend I'm looking at is still the gaming, right? So gaming is a big trend, and this is also a tall order for me because I'm not a gamer by nature. I tell this to many
What,
of
I
my
could just
friends, and also
imagine you
to my
spending
son.
hours and hours gaming.
Yeah, it's challenging for me to try to
Yeah.
get to understand the whole psyche behind the gaming world. My son has spent a lot of time in gaming. I always try to consult with myself to go, how do I get to understand how this gaming work, and now with GameFi coming on board, come to the market, all these play to earn models coming up, it's very intriguing, and I think the megatrend is here to stay. Is getting what kind of is incorporating a lot of the blockchain concepts and the physical world's concept into the new gaming world. So I think this is where I'm spending more and more time trying to get involved. I'm also investing into all these gaming projects, try to get the first-hand experience and understanding on how these things work, and hopefully, over time, they can build a portfolio of different projects that in this space. So NFTs is another big trend. So again, the best way to get understanding is to invest in it. Right? Once you get the skin involved, and you will have to learn. Right? Your attention will be there. Right? I may not understand everything about it, but with the partners, with the startups that is so passionate about this project, you get a lot of input and a lot of learning opportunities. So I think these are a few things.
Any other areas outside of those top three for you?
If it's in the let me see. I think within the
doesn't have to be blockchain. Out of curiosity, it doesn't have to be blockchain related. Can just be in general.
Well, I guess maybe not at this forum right now. Yeah.
Okay, so your head is completely blocked. Gotcha.
Yeah, I would say maybe 60-70% on it. The other 20-30%, I'm looking at on the social aspect of things, how to incorporate, say the gaming world into the charitable organizations, the community. Yeah, but that's not 100% commercial, right?
So let's go back to digital wealth, right? So obviously one of the biggest areas that that Henrik touched on, and I know you've got an investment in this area, and I think it's worthwhile touching on because we were talking about it on the weekend, is obviously, derivatives, right? It's obviously a big part of sort of capital markets globally. And now you're starting to see crypto futures start to exist. You see Binance that have got Tesla futures, that are crypto on their platform. And also, you were talking about the sort of options, the sort of call and put options that can be give us some insight into some of those sort of developments. So the company you're investing into, I'm referring to, is Sparrow Exchange, which you were showing me on the weekend. I thought that's really cool because I met with them 3 years ago. Like what they're, so it's great to see what it's evolved to. Give some examples, some of the things that they're working on, just to give some sort of vision of what are some of the financial products that are being built, off the back of crypto.
Sure, will do. So Sparrow Exchange is a Singapore-based options trading platform, and I'm an early investor in the token during maybe 3-4 years back when they did their ICO. And it has evolved into a digital wealth kind of a management platform as well. And they are working with different investors, funds, and family offices to help generate yields out of their crypto inventory. So that is something I'm working with them as well. I have a small investments with the platform. I manage a small fund where yield is being generated for the crypto holdings that we place with them. They have a custodian arrangement. They are also exempted. They've applied for the exemption from the Payment Service Act managed out of Singapore's MAS. And right now the AUM that's under management is also growing. So that is a very good way to generate yields from our crypto holdings. And a lot of my friends would come and say we will try to put together our funds and manage all this trading on behalf for these investors. And the yield, the kind of yield you can get is if you place a BTC to sell calls on a monthly basis, on a bi-weekly basis, you can generate yields between 10% to even as high as 50%, depending on the risk appetite and the choice of the strike price and the tenor that you would want to undertake, right? If you are long BTC, then and you do not want to convert your BTC to USDT, then you can actually just place it out for a higher strike price and get a yield in the meantime when you're holding it. It's better than just to let your BTC just sitting there and not generating any yield. But of course, when you place it into the option, then you run the risk of conversion. Similarly, if you want to have your holdings in USDT, and then you can sell puts and get some yields on the holdings and be able to generate some nice yield that otherwise you would not have it if you put it in the bank.
Yeah.
Right? So and there are various other trading strategies. that these traders would be able to recommend. You can have call spread, put spreads, and various strategy which those traders will be the experts. And so I work with them as a institutional partner to create different pools of notes that we can invest through the platform. So I think this is a one way to get into it. You don't need to be too high risk taking, because you can take a multi-strategy approach, right? One way is just buy and hold. This is one basic strategy. Number two, you can do
which a lot do, right? A lot of people just buy it, they hold it, they put it into a cold wallet, they just let it go, etc., and just basically wait for 5-10 years and see what happens.
That's right. So it's kind of in an escalating, progressive way of managing your funds, right? It's a portfolio approach. And then beyond the structured product, you can do yield farming, right, through DeFi. You can either do it yourself or can put it into a DeFi fund, right? Or you can also the next level is that you can invest into private rounds or private deals of new emerging projects, right? There's higher risk, right? Or you can put it into quant fund, right? Quantitative funds for it to generate yield out of arbitrage strategies or other trading strategies using algo. So I think it's a whole spectrum, and different investors have different risk preferences. So it's a matter of working together with maybe an advisor who can help you to kind of eventually get some involvement and get comfortable with the risk profile and the return, and you can build a very nice portfolio to accumulate some wealth.
Now,
so this is all part of wealth management.
It's super exciting, right? Because I said I've had chats with people over the last few years with friends of mine, and we've talked about this sort of conversation of, if you think about sort of the building of personal wealth, right now it sort of feels like there's two different angles where you feel like you want to build personal wealth. One is in the traditional sort of, let's call it centralized finance world. And then the now sort of in the crypto world, you also want to build wealth. And it's interesting how the two worlds are sort of coming together, or there's on-ramps being built, there's exchanges being built, there's infrastructure being built. There's, like you mentioned with Spirit, what I found interesting about that was, there's basically now institutional digital asset holders, which basically have insurance backing for a certain portion of the crypto that gets held. That is super cool. And you can see those two different worlds come together, especially when it's such an early stage. And the value of crypto at the moment is at $2 trillion. But in 5 to 10 years, that could be anywhere between sort of 10 trillion sort of plus going forward. So that sort of excites me. And for you, I would think I'd want to know, how do you think about it from your own, you're obviously one of the rare people that I've met where you've got both a blockchain and crypto related fund and a venture related fund. Now, obviously your mind's in the blockchain. How do you sort of perceive it now?
No, I think it's an ongoing effort to try to understand the two worlds and to find ways where you can be relevant to the two worlds, while at the same time find opportunities to bridge them. I'll give you an example. Right, SPAC is a big thing, right? SPAC in US is a big thing. And just Singapore just announced that we have a SPAC scheme. The SGX has just approved, or MS have just approved the SGX for issuing a SPAC. The opportunity in Singapore. So there are a lot of these traditional business, SMEs or big companies, high growth companies who are looking at listing opportunities in Singapore, right? So I just had a meeting with a very good friend at SGX who's in charge of this SPAC initiative. They've just gone through a major round of consultation with over 100 of industry players giving feedback. And today we can create the SPAC size like 150 million, as opposed like in US, you can get the smaller size 50 million in US. But today, to answer your question, actually, a lot of traditional guys are looking to list on the traditional exchange like SGX or the AXX equivalent. But at the same time, in the crypto world, digital world, people are looking to list on the IDOs, on the centralized exchange or decentralized exchange. I do see opportunity where there could be a new class of companies who are listed on both the traditional exchange with the equity shares and they also have their tokens listed on the centralized exchange or the decentralized exchange.
That's a dream for that's an absolute dream for an investor, to be able to have the equity holding and also potentially generate either some sort of yield or some sort of have some sort of financial outcome or saleability of tokens at the same time.
Yeah. So I think today regulators are also trying to work with industry players, and they're trying to streamline the do's and don'ts, right? So that people don't cross the line, investors are protected. And I think that's important. But at the end of the day, any entrepreneurs who are starting a business, you're trying to create a solution or product, you want to not only generate revenue revenue from the sale of the product and services, but you also want to generate a return from the capital market. And the capital market for the longest while has always been the traditional capital market, but today in the crypto capital market, so to speak, right? That is another major emerging so-called market that we can look at. It's $2.3 trillion market now. Is only got to grow faster and faster. So we need to have more models who can bridge the two worlds to show the way for the next generation of entrepreneurs who to get in. Right. So
to give the adoption rate sort of amount, basically that means that by 2025 there will be 1 billion users of basically on crypto, as opposed to where it is now, which to give some sort of perspective as to what size of the crypto market can become, and some of whether it be the tokens or just the DeFi projects, the NFT projects, etc. That sort of should give people some sort of perspective as the exponential nature of this as an opportunity.
Yes, correct. Yep.
All right. So look, that's what I was showing you yesterday. The thing is, it just moves. Even some of the stuff you were talking about, like yield farming, I'd love to understand at a whole deeper level. The way people are generating returns from staking. I said, for me, I just look at, I thought, geez, that looks just like it's too hard. Then when you mentioned to me about the option strategy, like that's super cool. Like just in that alone, there's 3 different ways that someone can generate yield from their actual crypto holdings. And said to me, I love innovation because not only does it replace what's existing from an infrastructure perspective, whether it be wealth management that you were talking about, it then goes above and beyond, and then 5x and 10x the returns above it. And Amazon's a fantastic example of that. Any platform in Australia, it's Seek as an example. Like Seek alone is $13 billion. Nine, which owns Channel 9, the television company, and all the Fairfax assets and so forth, is only $4 billion, right? So just one vertical of what was previously in classifieds is already 4 times larger than one of the largest media companies in the country. And so you get to see what that exponential effect looks like. So even though people always get concerned about with Bitcoin, it's at 50,000, it's actually at 46 today, whatever it was, right? Say, I've missed the boat because I could have got it at 100. It's like, it's actually still super early because the adoption is only in the hundreds of millions, where in 2025 it will be at the billion level. And with that is new opportunities, new revenue streams. You've got the smartest minds working on it. And we haven't even seen what could be the revenue of it. Like whatever me and you are talking about today, we could do this 1 year from now. And we're talking about completely other topics that are red hot, and that are new industries that are being created, right? And that's what makes it exciting and also time consuming, right? Because you have to keep up with it.
Yes. Yeah, you have to spend a lot of time at night to go read through, and then you have to get experience with all the different platforms. It's not easy.
Correct. Well, look, let's finish it there. I just want to say thank you so much. I do have a question that someone's asked is, what's your thoughts on El Salvador adopting crypto?
Now, I think that's a bold move, and they are basically taking the lead to embrace Bitcoin as a currency. I think that will really get the government thinking about how to embrace it, and it will only give a positive also impact to the adoption of the Bitcoin. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of so-called risk mitigating so-called consideration that we need to watch out for, right? Because the Bitcoin price is not necessarily very stable all the time. So I think the details, the devil's in the details on how to translate the use of that currency for your day-to-day use and transaction, right?
So saying that Bitcoin is slightly volatile. What was your exact words? Say it is high. Like just yesterday alone, it was like 10 to 20% drop. But look, I think for most people that have you hear it so many times. If someone's thinking about holding Bitcoin or Ethereum or something like that, effectively, so they really got to have a multi-year thinking about it from a multi-year perspective. Right. Where I see most people will have issues is if they get super excited, they get FOMO, and the next thing they're on exchanges and they're leveraging up, and they're doing their best to get onto BitMEX Rect, as a channel. Like that's where you see a lot of the biggest issues is really when people are trading on leverage or money that they can't afford to lose.
That's right.
More so than thinking about it that, okay, this is an actual investment. What's the usability of it? What is the actual traction? How many projects are actually using that, using that sort of either token or using that sort of blockchain, etc. Like to me, I find that sort of more interesting than what's the latest hype on a deal that's been pumped.
Yes, you're right. Well, we all need to be very aware of what we're doing, think thoroughly before we make a decision to invest.
All right, mate. Well, as always, I love my conversations with you, and I said I've learned so much from obviously our conversation on the weekend, and also from having this discussion. Once again, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it, and can't wait to see what we're talking about 1 year from now.
Yes, thank you very much, Steve, for having me.
Thanks, Fong Jek.
Thank you. Thank you.